Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Good to see everyone. It's going to be a wild one. Wednesdays are often very wacky. Let's get into it. We have a bunch of shows that were pre-recorded or videos that were recorded either this morning or last evening. And we're going to watch those as we lead into question period, which is in about 45 minutes, 40 minutes or so. We've got some very interesting videos to watch here, so we're going to kick it off. This is how we do it. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Aaron. We've got our guy Kirk here. He's my right-hand person, and we're just trying to show Canadians what is actually happening in Canadian federal politics. Let's get into it.
Questions orales, oral questions.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
WTF.
Hey everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
The one we call Canadians.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up. Elbows up.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand, be aware of this.
Oh yeah. And now, oral questions, questions orales.
Oral questions, questions orales.
Let's see what's happening in the House of Commons right now. Clown circus at the sausage factory. Let's go.
Mr. Debat, the Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So I think if we're going to talk about this piece of legislation, we should put a couple of things into context. And the first thing I would put into context is this is another bill that the Liberals are trying to bring forward to allegedly do something to deal with the massive surge in crime that's gone on in Canada over the last 10 years, which is a remarkable turnaround. I still recall when the Minister of Justice, Arif Farani, when he was sitting in this chamber, would get up in question period and say we're trying to scare Canadians and we're engaging in typical conservative fear with respect to the issues of crime, when we'd be raising the staggering increase in crime and violent crime. That would be the answer. Now it seems like they've had their moment where they're reckoning, where they've realized that over the last 10 years, due to their policies, we've had a massive surge in crime. And if you don't want to take my word for it, I've got a few statistics that I would like to go.
Smash the like, guys. It does help. Let's get a big audience going here today. Like, smash the like and you'll see the audience grow. It happens.
Go through
That's a real
so
thing.
that Canadians can understand just how bad crime has gotten in this country under this Liberal government. Total violent crime is up 49%, 49.84%. Let's just round that up to 50%. A 50% increase in violent crime after a decade of these Liberals running the country. Homicides up 28%. Gang-related homicides up 78%. Sexual assaults up 74%. Extortion up 357%. Let that sink in for a moment. A decade ago, we had a certain number of extortions. It's now up 357%. Trafficking in persons. We know the terrible, terrible things that happen when you're trafficking in persons. It is up 83%. So all of this has happened over the last decade with these Liberals running the country, and they introduced a massive omnibus bill called Bill C2, because to get to C12, we actually have to talk a little bit about C2. I'm old enough to remember when the Liberals used to say, it's a terrible thing to introduce omnibus pieces of legislation. We would never do such things. And here we are. Bill C2 was going to amend 15 statutes and have 120 pages of technical statutory changes. And as Conservatives, we said, that's a no-go. And in fact, it's Conservative pressure because of a number of things that were included in C2 that we ended up actually here with
Happy birthday, Mark Maloney. How about that?
C12, which actually does have some things that we think might do some good. I know it's a strange thing to say, but as they often say, Mr. Speaker, a broken clock is right twice a day, and so they may have gotten a couple of things right here in Bill C12. But to go back to Bill C2, I really want to talk about some of the actually what I think are very deeply troubling things that were included in that piece of legislation. And it actually sort of shows the mindset where these Liberals have turned around on some of these issues. This is with respect to being able to search mail through Canada Post, which in of itself is problematic. But what the actual statutory changes they were trying to bring in said that this could happen on a reasonable suspicion, reasonable grounds to suspect. That is the lowest threshold that at law that you can use to do this. Normally, to be able to search something, you need the much higher standard of reasonable grounds to believe. So they were actually putting in the very lowest standard possible, reasonable suspicion. And because this was about the corporation, that means any employee of the corporation who would have a reasonable suspicion could be opening mail. I mean, that is a particularly troubling standard that they were trying to put into the bill. And it's been through, hard work from Conservatives who said absolutely not, that those parts of the legislation remain in C2 and are not included in C12. Now, it's also very interesting to note what's not included in any of these pieces of legislation that are trying to deal with the issue of crime that they are belatedly waking up to. For example, there is nothing in C12 that will deal with the issues of fentanyl trafficking, right? And the sentencing for fentanyl traffickers. They could have actually incorporated something like that to crack down on fentanyl trafficking. We believe that's something that has to be done, and it's actually not in there. They also didn't take the time to eliminate, for example, house arrest for drive-by shootings is still okay. They put together a massive omnibus piece of legislation, in part to deal with crime, but they left things like that out there and available so somebody who's engaging in drive-by shooting can be eligible for house arrest. And if we go back to the stats that I talked about, when you looked at this, gang-related homicides up 78%. Generally speaking, the kinds of people that are engaging in drive-by shootings would be people trying in gangs to create homicides. So they had so much opportunity to do better, and they failed to do that. Another thing that they failed to do in this is to make it crystal clear that so-called safe consumption sites will not be allowed anywhere near what the effect of these safe consumption sites has been. They become a blight in a neighborhood, and if you have them near schools, near children, these are not the kinds of things that you want. And again, simple place for them to have made that change, and they chose not to. So, now let's quickly switch and talk a little bit about some of the changes with respect to immigration. I was around when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, and changes were made to the asylum system, and we got asylum claims down to about 10,000. It sounds like a lot, but it's 10,000. If you look at where things are now, again, after a decade of these Liberals and their absolute and utter mismanagement of the immigration system, these asylum claims are now at a whopping 296,000. So think about that. A decade ago, 10,000. Now, 296,000. And I think the estimate to actually process these 296,000 cases in the backlog is 25 years. Let that sink in. That's the backlog on asylum claims that has been created by their absolute mismanagement of the immigration system. And what we're now hearing actually from some experts is that the changes that they're making aren't actually going to fix the broken system. What they're going to do is transfer this problem to the courts because they've decided that they can't fix it. So the fix isn't actually to figure out a way to A, quickly process the backlog, because we know so many of these claims are bogus asylum claims. In fact, one of the things that we did under Prime Minister Harper was to try and eliminate bogus asylum claims from certain countries by imposing visa requirements. And one of the first things they did was to eliminate those visa requirements. And surprise, surprise, we're back at 200. We're up to 296,000. So, well, the member's laughing, but it's actually the member who spends all day, every day, doing nothing but talk about how great he thinks this government is doing, is now laughing when I talk about the seriousness of a 296,000 person backlog. So the system is absolutely broken after 10 years of their management of the system. There may be some things in this legislation that we could support. We're going to have to send it to committee. I want to commend all my colleagues for their hard work to get this bill broken up into parts where some of the things we know we can't support are going to be in one particular piece of legislation. Some of the things we think we might be able to support with a little bit of study are going to be in this particular piece of legislation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to this bill, particular piece of legislation, being studied at committee.
Minister.
All right, gang, just to show you, we do work hard at this channel. I spent lots of time collecting this information. These are pieces from committee, and committee was wild last night. I think this is going to be Jos Raj Halan, the finance critic, going head-to-head with Julie DeBruzen, who is the environment minister, and she is a wreck. Let's just watch.
Are pipelines in the national interest of the country, yes or no?
Pardon me?
Are pipelines in the national interest of the country, yes or no?
So as I answered in the last one, we have a Build Canada Act that sets out a process and criteria for deciding.
Does that mean, I heard your answer from before, which was a non-answer. This is a very clear question. Are pipelines in the national interest of the country? It's a simple yes or no.
It's not a simple question that you're asking, because you're asking a question. I mean, my answer is quite simple as well. We have a Build Canada Act that sets out criteria.
Respectfully, it's not an answer. So let's put this into context, Minister. The Keystone Pipeline, would you support it? Yes or no?
That's not a decision that I have before me. So what we've been talking about when we're talking about projects in national interest.
The decision could possibly come up very shortly. Would you support the Keystone XL pipeline, yes or no?
I'm not going to answer a hypothetical. I will say that we have a process to decide which projects are in the national interest. That's what Canadians want from us.
So would pipelines fall under a project of national interest?
If there is a project that meets the 5 criteria, has Indigenous
would that include pipelines? I've not heard you say pipeline even once today.
What I'm saying is that there are many different kinds of projects that are being proposed as projects of national interest. It's really an exciting time, actually, for Canada to be able to envision what our future can look like.
And if one of those projects happened to be oil and gas pipelines, would that be something your government would support, yes or no?
again, it's a hypothetical until there's a fully designed project that's being put forward that has gone through Indigenous consultation.
So, given that, your track record said otherwise, because when the Northern Gateway Pipeline was before your cabinet table, your government's cabinet table, it had overwhelming support from Indigenous communities, and yet your government and at the cabinet table decided to cancel that project. So it's a little hard for us to believe that your government now has a change of heart that wants to somehow build projects that would be to the benefit of Canada when your government has also turned away our allies when they came here for our energy. So once again, would your government be in support of an oil and gas pipeline if it's in the national interest and before you today?
And what I'm saying is I can't provide you with an evaluation of a hypothetical. What I can tell you is that I believe Canadians would be happy to see that there's a very clear process with very clear criteria on which to judge it.
It's very interesting that you avoid the word pipeline and will not answer the question. It makes it very clear that you are against pipelines and oil and gas.
We can build.
Minister, would you support the constitutional power of the federal government to ensure interprovincial resource projects that are in the national interest to be built?
Point of order. I'm sorry, Chair. Just the line of questioning doesn't have anything to do with the bill that we're contemplating here at C4. I know that you've allowed a lot of latitude for members, but it's just continuous. It doesn't seem to have any relation to the consumer carbon tax, which is being repealed here, which is what the Conservatives always wanted. It's like a dream come true for them.
Turnbull, Mr. Kelly, on the same point of order.
The witness has engaged on this line of questioning, so it has become part of the substance of it, and it's consistent with other testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Halan?
My question stands. We see BC is holding hostage what's in the national interest for the country's betterment in the form of a pipeline. Do you support the constitutional power that the federal government has to ensure that that national interest project is built?
Like I said, again, there's a process to be followed when we're looking at what is a project of national interest. There are many different kinds of projects, and I was excited when you see that there were 5 projects.
Minister, respectfully, I'll assume that that pipelines are not in the national interest according to your government. I'll move on. The job-killing oil and gas cap that your government has put on, do you know how many jobs it's going to kill?
So when we're talking about the draft regulations for an oil and gas cap, there was a draft regulation that was tabled at the end of last year. It went through
What's the number, Minister? How many jobs will be lost with this oil and gas cap?
Mr. Turnbull, point of order.
Chair, I just want to ask if maybe the member couldn't speak over the witness. I know that the minister is trying to answer his questions. He's done that repeatedly, and the interpreters often find that very hard to interpret. So it's even hard for us to hear what's going on, especially if you're a French language speaker and you want to hear the translation. It's hard to make out what's being said.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull. I'll just remind all members that for the sake of interpretation, that we don't speak over each other. Thank you very much. Mr. Halan?
The minister refuses to answer any questions. So it's over 100,000 jobs your oil and gas cap will kill, and it'll kill around $1 trillion. And we've seen over the last 10 years, your government drove away $500 billion of investment already because of bills like Bill C-69, this oil and gas cap, your industrial carbon tax.
Point of order,
Minister.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but we're moving to clause by clause. I believe it's in our next meeting, and the member's not asking any questions that are relevant to the bill in question. C4 is a bill that includes repealing the consumer carbon tax, which doesn't have anything to do with what the member is asking about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Mr. Kelly, and then Mr. Gahan on the same point of order.
The member is burning the minister's time. The member can ask whatever questions he wants that she is engaged on, and she is engaged on this line of questions.
Mr. Kelly, Monsieur Garon.
Madam Chair, I understand what we're trying to do here is to defend the minister. She's very able to defend herself. I'm okay to give some latitude because there is the question of abolishing the carbon credit tax, to the consumer. Now, from the point where we have to go article by article, item by item. We have to know what the government's intentions are on so-called major projects, infrastructure, etc. How can we decide on C4 when it is so complex, and we have to look at each and every part of it? Now, we should the minister's doing a very good job of answering the questions today when she's given the opportunity to do so.
Carbon tax question, Minister. The carbon tax 2.0, that has no rebate, which you guys you hid under this name, clean fuel standard. Can you please let this committee know and Canadians know how much extra on top of a litre of gas that clean fuel standard or carbon tax 2.0 will cost them?
First, I want to be really clear that the clean fuel regulations are not a carbon tax, and it does drive billions of dollars in innovation.
It also drives billions of dollars away from Canada.
I was continuing to answer the question. It sets us up for a strong low-carbon economy.
How much extra per
jobs.
litre will it cost Canadians on a litre of gas by 2030? Just the number, please.
So one thing that I find interesting is just because you keep referring to it as a tax, and I want to be clear about that.
Minister, since you're not going to answer.
I actually would like to tell you something about what the canola...
Sorry, Mr. Turnbull, on a point of order.
I know the minister's doing a great job of answering or trying to answer, but Mr. Halan will not let her actually get her words out. It would be really nice if we could hear the answer,
Mr.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull.
I haven't heard a single answer today,
continue.
so I'll answer. According to the PBO, it'll add 17
Sorry, Mr.
cents.
Halan, your time is up. Thank you. So going on to Mr. Kelly for 6 minutes.
All right, guys, same committee investigation meeting, but now we have Pat Kelly. He's an MP from out west. He's pretty sharp. Let's check him out.
Thank you. Minister, your website says that you have, quote, supported putting a price on carbon pollution and have, quote, taken a strong stance against oil sands expansion. Is that the policy of your government?
Our government has been very clear that moving forward, we need to make sure that Canada is an energy superpower. That means in conventional energy and renewables. What that means, though, is that we need to be low carbon, low risk, and low cost for the future.
Your words, or take your website's words anyway, that you have taken a strong stance against oil sands expansion. So, if Canada is to be an energy superpower and to have additional production in the oil sands, it will require expansion. Do you support or oppose oil sands expansion?
To be clear, our government's policy, and our Prime Minister has been very clear on this, is that moving forward, we need to make sure that we have the strongest economy in the G7, and that includes being an energy superpower that will be low risk, low carbon, and low cost. We will be sure that as we move forward as an energy superpower, that we are...
Like, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the carbon tax and the green initiative and all of that is a total scam. That is all it is. The world is healthier now than it was in the 80s. Like, oh, it's such a scam.
Helping, across Canada to meet those needs. Because actually, when I'm talking with people around the world, what I am hearing is that they are looking to Canada to be able to produce the energy that they need for the future.
They've been looking to Canada for 10 years, and your government has hemmed in and done everything it can to harm the production of energy in Canada. So have you changed your mind then? You're no longer taking a strong stand against oil sands expansion. Is that...
I take issue with when you say, that we haven't been actually producing energy in this country that the world is looking for. I was in Nova Scotia, and I got to see all of the opportunity that's being built in offshore wind. That is an amazing opportunity for our country. When I'm looking at what our country is producing right across this country with a nuclear capacity and how we're working, we had an energy agreement with nuclear with Romania. When you look at what Canada is producing and our know-how, we are consistently providing to the world the energy that they need.
So the world needs, if we are going to supply the world with safe, reliable energy, we are going to need oil sands expansion. Do you still oppose oil sands expansion?
What I have actually said, and I think I've said it now a few times, is that we are going to be there as an energy superpower, and that we need to make sure that as we're doing that, any progress in that way is low carbon and low risk and low cost.
Okay. Do you support a Pacific pipeline, yes or no?
I'll go back to this piece, that if there's a hypothetical that you're putting to me right now. So a Pacific pipeline, there's no designed policy.
Okay. So here's one that's not hypothetical. Here's a real one. The government of which you're a member was formed in this time 10 years ago, and almost literally the first action that it undertook was canceling the Northern Gateway pipeline by order in council. Do you support that decision to cancel the then conditionally approved Pacific pipeline?
I'm looking forward to where we can move as a country, and that's where I think Canadians are at right now. Canadians want to see how we can build Canada, how we can build a strong economy for Canadians, and that we do that in a way that builds a strong future.
You see how your credibility is compromised on this. Your government killed the pipeline that was approved 10 years ago. You spent 10 years opposing pipelines. Your own website says that you have taken a strong stance against oil sands expansion, and now you want us to take you at some word now that you support energy expansion in Canada.
I have been pretty consistent in all of my answers to you, and I would say that, again, Canada has a role to play as an energy superpower, and in doing that, we need to be low carbon.
One final question. Time is very limited. So do you recognize the federal government's responsibility? It has a right and, in fact, a responsibility if a project is in the national interest to declare it so. Do you support the notion that the federal government has a right to declare something in the national interest?
We passed Build Canada Act, which is an important piece of legislation to do what Canadians are looking for in this moment, which is to build our country and to look towards projects of national interest. There is a process that fits within it with criteria that's built into the legislation.
Does that mean that provinces have a veto, or does the federal government have primacy?
What the legislation sets out are 5 criteria, including Indigenous consultation, and including Canada's climate objectives, but also including factors towards our economic...
Yes or no, does the federal government have a right to declare projects in the national interest?
We have a Build Canada Act that has specific criteria and a process built into it that needs to be followed.
Your failure to respond yes leaves us to conclude that you think that premiers may have a veto.
My answer is that we have legislation that we passed, I believe, with your support, that actually sets out what the rules are as to how that happens.
So then could you affirm now for the committee that, yes, the government has primacy and has the right to declare a project in the national interest?
I'm saying right now that we have passed legislation that's clear.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, and thank you, Minister de Bruce. That concludes the time for this round. We'll go.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, gang. So this is Justice Committee, where we've got Mark Miller. This prick is the chair of the Justice Committee, but he's facing off head-to-head with Larry Brock, who has some very wicked questions to ask. Mark Miller, I couldn't say anything more degrading than calling him he is what he is. He's a loser.
Larry, 6 minutes. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Just when I thought that the Carney Liberal government could not be more out of touch on this particular study, we have Mr. Maloney, the current Liberal caucus chair and former parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Justice in the last Parliament, accuse Conservatives and other advocates of fear-mongering. Well, I couldn't see anything more out of touch than that when you've had, for the last 4 years, mayors such as you, Mr. Gillingham, premiers of every province and territory, police chiefs across the country, police association presidents, victim advocacy groups, all pleading and begging with this Liberal government to wake up to the reality on our streets that victims and Canadians are terrified. Those are the facts. They read and see every single day example after example of people committing violent crimes while out on bail. Mr. Maloney says facts matter. He needs to read the paper. He needs to follow what's happening on the media, because that's exactly what is happening. And then he has the audacity to say, we have good laws? If we had good laws, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in right now. We have a situation called principle of restraint, that regardless of the offense you commit, regardless of the number of releases you're on, regardless of your criminal record, which shows a history of breaching bail and a history of committing the same offense over and over again, this Liberal government directed and instructed judges to release the accused at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions.
Point
that,
of order,
folks,
point
is
of order,
the
Mr.
origin.
Chair. If
Point of
Mr.
order.
Brock is going to make accusations and suggests he's relying on facts, I suggest he does it himself.
That's
the Liberal
not
government
point of
has
order,
never,
Mr.
the
Chair.
Liberal government has never instructed a judge, in my experience, ever.
Chair, that is not a point of order.
Yeah, look, obviously here, it may or may not be a point of order. You have 3 minutes left. I assume you have a question, because the principle of restraint obviously is not being applied to the line of questioning. So just please get to it.
If we had good laws, we would not be here today studying this issue. If we had good laws, and we've heard from the Prime Minister, from Carney, from Justin Trudeau, we've heard from former Justice Ministers saying how sound our bail laws were and that the whole concept of fear is simply in our heads. Former Justice Minister Arif Virani indicated that, a former Crown Attorney as well. So if we had those laws, we wouldn't be hearing from this Liberal government now saying, we're finally waking up to the reality. We have been listening, and we're going to be introducing bail legislation sometime this week. Okay? We've been hearing that literally for the last 7 months. So I've identified the elephant in the room, and that's the principle of restraint. We have a bill already in the House of Commons tabled, the Jail Not Bail Act, which seeks at its principal core to replace the principle of restraint when it comes to repeat violent offending, and replacing that with the principle of protection and community safety. How do you feel, anyone feel about that as addressing a tool to ensure that repeat violent offenders are detained in custody where they belong?
Just one of you, I guess, because there's only a minute and 20 seconds left. I think that's a good point, and in my mind, this is when I talk about using a scalpel and taking evidence-based approaches. The issue with the concerns many Canadians have, when we look at one of the root causes is, especially with our First Nations Canadians, with our Indigenous Canadians who not monopolize, they're disproportionate within our system. Had we, and 10 years ago, we made a commitment as a nation to addressing the challenges that exist in these communities, had we followed through with more than 13 out of 90 some odd calls to action, had we seen and if we increased our investment into our First Nations communities, we wouldn't see the numbers, and we wouldn't see the recidivism. We need to have, with any bail program, we do need to have a very calculated, evidence-based approach going into bail. But as I said, on that trajectory of bail, we need to have resources in place. And I believe that those resources do come from the federal government, that the federal government has an obligation, especially to our First Nations people, to ensure that they have the supports and that their communities are reaching the health and the vibrance and the opportunities. We're not seeing that to the same degree across the country. I know there are some good success stories that we've seen in Alberta with Oxford House and others, but in my mind, this is where we fall short in considering the process of bail and the monitoring and the enforcement while on monitoring. Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Mr. Goes Brock, Dillon, Fortin, Weber, and Lattanzio. So we'll start off with you, Andrew.
So we've got Andrew Lawton up next, who is probably my new favorite, or my favorite of the new MPs. He's very engaging. Like, he looks like Peter Griffin, but like...
Thank you
sharp
to
as
all
a
of
tack.
the witnesses for taking the time to be with us today. I'd like to start with you, Mayor Gillingham. You alluded to it in your opening remarks. Explain this bulletin you've had to start doing for repeat offenders, please.
Well, I've been sharing actual cases, historic cases, so as not to jeopardize any matters that would be currently before the courts. And so far, I've released 5 of them, and the information is taken, we're being assisted right now with the Winnipeg Police Service and information of historical cases. And so far, as I said a moment ago, of the 5 cases I've shared, they're all cases where people have breached their court orders and gone on to commit violent crime. One was, the first one I released was, the final charge that led to a conviction was a carjacking with a firearm, assault. That individual had been, had 24 violent offenses, prior offenses, and had breached court orders 12 times. Another individual convicted finally of homicide, convicted of 8 prior violent offenses with 9 failures to comply. So these are cases where individuals have been repeatedly granted bail, and while they're out on bail, they're committing more crime. So from my point of view as a mayor of Winnipeg, is we need to continue at other mayors to call for the kind of changes and changes that will prevent that from happening, to protect individuals, businesses, community members from that kind of repeat violence from individuals who have a history of disregarding their bail conditions. And so that is at the heart of what I'm hoping that we see changed in the upcoming legislation.
And you've been speaking in your comments specifically about repeat violent offenders. You mentioned one case in Manitoba, the Hollow Water Reservation. Someone who stabbed his sister, injured 7 others, was out on bail at the time of it. Just a truly horrific case. And there is also an issue with non-violent offenders that are subject to the same revolving door bail system. I was hoping you could speak to the effect that has on public safety, on businesses. I know this is something where it's often not been spoken about by witnesses here, but it is a predictor of violent criminality. People that may be out on bail for repeat vandalism, arson, and then are arrested the next time for something violent. Is this something you're seeing in Winnipeg?
We are, and one of the cases I know that talked about recently was an individual who was involved in theft and was confronted by a security guard, and that turned violent immediately. A weapon was produced, and so what started as a theft turned out to be another violent incident. What happens, though, too, is that when members of my community are talking to me, they're losing faith in the justice system when they see the same individuals, either repeat violent offenders, out on the street committing more crime, or they see those involved in theft over and over again. And I said in my letter to Minister Fraser that was put together with myself and Mayors Knox of Portage Prairie, Mayor Fawcett of Brandon, Manitoba, and Kathy Valentino, the head of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, we said to them to Minister Fraser, we can't ignore the small things, because the small things become the big things if left unchecked. Mm-hmm. And so I'm all for diversion. I'm absolutely for rehabilitation. But when there's violent incidents, we need to use all tools possible to separate the perpetrators from the potential victims, and those who would continue have a history of disregarding their court orders, who we think will go on, likely to, quite possibly, to repeat a violent offense. We've got to use whatever tools possible to separate those individuals from the public.
Thank you. Mr. Gemmell, you mentioned this is a national issue. Now, this tracks with what I've been hearing. There is no city or town or community that is unaffected by this in any province, northern, southern, French, English, large, small, urban, rural. You said very clearly it's a national problem. The Liberal members on this committee have been trying to put a lot of the blame on provincial governments, saying that our issues are really with provinces here. You're saying this is a national issue. You're saying there is federal legislation that is needed to solve this bail problem.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Your mic.
Do I need to turn it on? It's on there.
Thanks for the question. Certainly, we are seeing this issue as national in scope. FCM represents 2,100 municipal governments of all sizes in every province and territory, and we are hearing about this issue from members in communities of all sizes and in all regions. In terms of the responsibility, to address this, it's clearly a shared responsibility. There's a role for the federal government, for the provinces and territories, and on the policing side, clearly a role for municipalities. What municipalities are saying is local law enforcement have their hands tied. They're not able to address this issue without further changes to the criminal code and without further changes in improving the capacity of the justice system at the provincial level. So there is a shared responsibility there, and we are looking for leadership from the federal government.
When you hear from municipalities, and they're, of course, dealing with police service boards, they're dealing with police chiefs, they're drawing a line between, largely in the conversations I've had, C-75 from a previous parliament on this, and that included the principle of restraint, this idea that offenders need to be released at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. Does the FCM support repealing the principle of restraint from the criminal code?
Yeah, FCM doesn't have a position on that specifically. Our focus has been on strengthening the criminal code to make it harder for repeat violent offenders to be released on bail. We don't think that's currently happening. There's evidence to suggest that that's not happening now, and that there are changes needed to make that more difficult. We also think that there's a role for the federal government to play in terms of gathering and compiling data and providing guidance to the provinces on best practices for making decisions on bail and monitoring bail conditions. It's a risk-based model, and the approach needs to be based on the best available evidence.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney, over to you, 6 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask MLA Bangu. We've heard today that there's a false narrative that's being presented here when I use the term, or I believe use the term Drivers Inc. That somehow it's a talking point for industry. I'm speaking on behalf of the people that I represent. What about you?
Yeah, and to say it's the racial tensions, I'm a person of color myself. I'm in the trucking industry. I've had people of color tell me this needs to be addressed. It is a concern for them. Maybe if you have an LMIs coming to you and you have ways to circumvent it, and there's ways, maybe you don't want change. But I'll tell you, a lot of the hardworking Canadians that have came here, built a life for themselves in this industry, want to play by the rules, and they expect others to play by the rules.
So we've heard from other witnesses that when these LMIAs are gotten and offered to individual workers that are exploited, essentially they're said, there's a quid pro quo. I'll get you a vehicle, we'll get you set up with an incorporation, but you're going to work for me and you're going to be paid far less, sometimes I think 30 or 32 cents a kilometer, or maybe it's a mile for the industry.
And who
but
built our
the thing is that it's usually 72 cents. For much of the rest of the industry. So it's impossible for them to compete. But also, I think it's impossible for them to basically do all the things that you expect, like maintenance of a truck. What other shortcuts do you think are being done by those that are put into these positions? What have you heard?
Well, in British Columbia, we've had a huge issue with overpass strikes and a lot of terrible accidents that have happened, unfortunately. And what we have been realizing is that a lot of the carriers do have temporary foreign workers or do have new drivers on there, and they're literally told, hey, if you don't move this load, you're not staying in this country. This is not false. This is a reality. I have been in the industry. For people to say this does not happen is completely ludicrous, and that's where the general public realizes there's an issue right here.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to pass the rest of my time to my colleague, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, and I'll be asking questions to you, Mr. Vishwas. And so I just wanted to confirm some of your earlier testimony. You stated that the laws should be updated to allow those truck drivers who don't own trucks to incorporate. Is that correct?
I would say that would have the effect of modernizing
So currently those who don't have trucks shouldn't be allowed to incorporate, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. That's not what the rules state. The rules say you have to take a holistic approach.
No, well, what the rules say is, according to the Supreme Court, is that there's a number of factors, but one of the key factors is ownership of tools. And it's very difficult, the Supreme Court has said, for you to be legally allowed to incorporate, you're allowed to incorporate, but you're not allowed to call yourself an independent contractor. They actually deem you to be an employee. It's very, very difficult to do that without the ownership of your tools. So as you said earlier in your testimony, you said this earlier, that the law should be changed to allow non-owning truck drivers to become incorporated. That was your testimony earlier.
No, it's two parts. First, that's not what the Supreme Court jurisprudence is, and I did not say you should change it. I said you should update it with voluntariness, because that is the problem everyone seems to have. They're saying that somehow businesses force drivers to incorporate.
With respect, sir, you said earlier, and we can read the record back to you, you said earlier that if in fact you don't own a truck, you cannot incorporate, and now you're changing that testimony. Is that true?
Say that.
You absolutely did. You said the laws need to be modernized to allow for the...
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Gahir.
It was my line of questioning that raised this testimony. I think the witness knows what he said.
It's not a valid point of order.
Sure, I made my point.
This is my time, and I want my time put back.
Your time is stopped, so we're going to give you the time that you need. If there are questions as to what a witness had said, we can refer back to the notes that have been taken and to Hansard, if necessary.
And you, sir, that the laws needed to be changed to allow those truckers who do not own trucks to be allowed to incorporate. Are you now changing your testimony, sir?
Updated, sir. Not changed. You can't change the law. It probably has the same effect.
Your testimony, not your law. You're changing your testimony now.
So what exactly is your question?
So my question, you said earlier in your testimony that the laws needed to be changed to allow those who don't own trucks to become incorporated. I mean, clearly implying that in order to incorporate, you needed to own a truck. Are you now changing that testimony, sir?
No. So I think you misunderstand. That is the current ESTC approach, that if you don't own a truck or be an owner-operator, they seem deemed to classify it as an employee-employer relationship. That's their current stance on it, and I think that's wrong. Someone has to take it to the Supreme Court, and have it tested.
But it's your position of your organization that in order to be in compliance with the laws, that in order for a truck driver to incorporate, they need to own their truck.
Thank you very much.
All right, gang, we're going to cross over to question period right now. Let's get that lined up. And we have that. We're ready to go, I think. Oh, gosh. This always happens. Whatever. We're straight over into it. We're opening up with the Quebecois, it would seem.
I rise today to recognize Burlington Mayor Marianne Mead Ward and the Halton Elected Representatives Group, which I am honored to be part of, for launching the Elect Respect campaign. This initiative began as a conversation among women elected at all levels of government in Burlington, where we recognized a shared reality of harassment and threats. From those conversations came a commitment to create a safer, more respectful culture in public life. Elect Respect calls on both elected officials and citizens to pledge respectful and inclusive participation in our democracy. It reminds us that debate should be about ideas, not personal attacks, and that integrity and respect must guide our discourse. Sadly, harassment toward elected officials has been on the rise. In 2023, the RCMP reported more than 2,600 threats, double the year before. Campaigns like Elect Respect matter because they call on all of us to set a better tone for our colleagues, for our constituents, and for the next generation of leaders. I encourage all members of this House to join me in taking...
The Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Promised to make Canada an energy superpower and get projects built at lightning speed. 6 months later, not a single project permit has been granted. Not one. No pipelines, no mines, no energy corridors, just broken promise after broken promise. Now he pushes forward with his emissions cap. That will wipe out $40 billion in investment here in Canada, will drive away investment from across Canada, and cost over 40,000 jobs right here at home. More broken promises. The Prime Minister seems to think that supporting oil and gas starts and ends with cheering for the Edmonton Oilers. Mr. Speaker, Albertans don't need a Prime Minister to come up with a national wish list. We need him to get out of the way. A Conservative government would scrap the emissions cap. We would end Bill C-49 and C-69. We would scrap the industrial carbon tax. Instead of broken promises, we would restore the promise of Canada that hard work would buy an affordable home in a safe neighborhood, that you could put food on the table for every Canadian. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beaches East York.
Mr. Speaker, Joey Band is an incredible story of Canadian innovation and entrepreneurship. Haley Mullins, Ashley Wade, and Sarah Cox are co-founders of the company whose medical device Haley invented and globally patented in 2013. Joey Band is a data-backed device used by hospitals around the world to safely support skin-to-skin contact and bonding for thousands of newborns. Hospitals that use it have reported higher breastfeeding rates, reduced NICU admissions, reduced opioid use, and healthier outcomes for mothers and babies. This ingenuity received an honorable mention in Time Best Inventions of 2025, a timely recognition as this is the WHO's Year of Maternal and Newborn Health, a call for nations to invest in early life innovation. Joey Band is also part of the Femtech Canada network of 200 companies dedicated to advancing women's health technology. When still only 17% of women are international patent holders, Joey Band's success shows us what happens when we support Canadian femtech and women's entrepreneurship. We drive progress in health, equity, and innovation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. The honourable member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
In a scathing report from the Auditor General yesterday, it was revealed that complaints against the CRA's contact centres have risen 145% in the last 3 years. Their phone system is nearly 4 times over budget, costing taxpayers more than $190 million, where few get through, and the ones that do receive the wrong information 83% of the time. To add insult to injury, this Liberal government failed to properly review contracts worth tens of millions of dollars before issuing payments. Quote, there was no process documented or followed to ensure the amounts invoiced were accurate. Sound familiar? The Auditor General found the same issue during the Liberals' Arrive scam where, and I quote, federal policies were frequently disregarded. Canadians are stuck with more of the same Liberal incompetence. Conservatives will continue to hold this government to account on their repeated failures to ensure Canadians receive value for their money.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want safe neighbourhoods where families and businesses can thrive. Last week, I was proud to join my BC colleagues in Surrey for an echo announcement highlighting our government's new steps to combat crime. These measures include tougher bail conditions for repeat violent offenders, stronger penalties for organized retail theft, and additional 1,000 new RCMP personnel across this country. This investment will help ensure that fast-growing communities like Surrey have the resources needed to keep pace with growth and protect public safety. Our government is listening to Canadians, supporting law enforcement, and taking real action to keep our streets and communities safe.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Loaves and Fishes Community Food Bank, based in Nanaimo, feeds more than 15,000 families up and down the island who can't afford to keep up with rising grocery prices. They've done everything right, but they're still waiting for the $5 million in federal funding they were promised by this Liberal government. The Prime Minister said he would be judged by the prices Canadians pay at the grocery store, and Canadians are paying the price. Food inflation is double what it should be and beyond what we can afford. Liberal deficits are driving inflation every step of the way. Hidden Liberal taxes on fuel, on packaging, and on production are baked into every grocery bill. Canadians don't see them on their receipts, but they feel them every time they buy food. I'll be watching this next federal budget closely, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be following up with this government to make sure Loaves and Fishes gets every penny.
The honourable member for London West.
Mr. Speaker, on October 15th, I had the pleasure of joining local partners to announce 42 affordable housing units. That's 42 Londoners that will now have a place to call home. Wow. I want to thank the City of London and Indwell for their leadership and continued investment in the well-being of our communities. Build Canada Homes is a national strategy that will get housing built faster, smarter, and more affordably. It will cut red tape, unlock public land, and preserve existing affordable rentals in the country. It brings every level of government together with mayors, builders, and nonprofits to deliver homes that Canadians can actually afford in every region across this country. This is what leadership looks like, Mr. Speaker. And while the Conservatives continue to talk down on Canada, our government is getting things built, and Canadians can trust that we will get this job done. Thank you.
Oral questions.
Here we go. Let's get it going.
Leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, today I will be meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss the 10th Liberal budget. We, the Conservatives, want an affordable budget so Canadians can have an affordable life. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did not keep his promise to spend less. He doubled the deficit he inherited, and now the inflation rates are climbing. In fact, all measures are higher than the Bank of Canada target. Will the Prime Minister agree to what we're looking for an affordable life for Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Come on.
Mr. Speaker, it will be an affordable budget and an ambitious one. Affordable for operational expenditures. We will clean up operational expenditures, but we will be investing in Canada. This will be the largest investment in our country, in the history of our country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker,
Come
that
on,
is exactly
Pierre.
what this Liberal government promised 10 years ago. But what's the result? They doubled the debt, they doubled wait lines at food banks, doubled the cost of housing, and investments have dropped, more so here in Canada than in any other G7 country and in the history of Canada. Today, there are 2 million Canadians who need to turn to food banks. And food inflation is skyrocketing. Will the Prime Minister learn from his lessons, reduce deficits, and eliminate hidden taxes on food? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I've just said, this will be a cleaning up of operational expenditures for the first time in a decade in this country. Second, with respect to inflation, it will be the 21st month in a row that the rate of inflation is in keeping with the Bank of Canada's target range. That's 2.4, and the range is 1 to 3.
Mr. Speaker, today the Prime Minister and I will meet to discuss the 10th Liberal budget deficit. Our priority as Conservatives is an affordable budget for an affordable cost of living for the Canadian people. The Prime Minister promised he would spend less, but his deficit spending is 100% more. He promised he'd be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Well, they're now rising at 2 times the Bank of Canada's target, and inflation is now once again out of control. Will the Prime Minister learn from the inflationary, costly failures of the 10 years of Liberal government and accept our plan for an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this budget will get operational spending under control. It will balance our spending over the next 3 years. But we're not going to stop there. We are going to invest in this country. We're going to have the biggest investment in this country in generations.
Yeah.
The largest capital spend in generations. The most ambitious trade diversification in our nation's history. We will do everything to help Canadians get ahead. They have gotten ahead every single month since I became Prime Minister.
He's a loser.
The opposition. Never bought groceries lately.
Canadians, according to this Prime Minister, have never had it so good. If you're that single mother out there walking down the grocery aisle looking at prices rise before your eyes, if you're that senior choosing between eating and heating, if you're one of the countless Canadians who see that roasted coffee is up 41% since the Prime Minister took office, that nuts and seeds up 15%, that food price inflation is now double the target, or if you're one of those 2 million people that are lined up at food banks every single month, the Prime Minister says you've never had it so good. How is it possible for this Prime Minister to be so costly and so out of touch with reality?
Just got to point out, guys, I've never seen Pierre Poilievre break the fourth wall. He just did twice. He spoke right to Canadians in the House of Commons. Anyways, that's exciting to me.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, it's time once again for our economic lesson. Okay.
Come on.
Getting ahead means your wages grow faster than inflation. Let's look at the relationship between inflation and deficits. The inflation rate in Canada, the food inflation rate, is the G7 average, and we have the lowest deficit in the G7. What the government is going to do is use that deficit to grow this economy like it's never seen before.
Well done. Mark Carney's a puss.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So the Prime Minister says to that single mother, that small business owner, that senior I just referenced out there, that he needs to give you economic lessons. You are the one out there who are watching prices rise right before.
Bring it on. Do more.
Yes, the honourable member knows to speak through the chair, and there was a lot of noise around that. So if the honourable member could just start from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is now lecturing Canadians who are lined up at food banks, telling them that they've never had it so good. That if only they appreciated all the many promises that he's made, promises that he hasn't even begun to keep, that they would then be appreciative of the fact that here we have fresh and frozen beef is up 14%, fresh and frozen cut chucks up 12%, frozen meats up 11%, coffee grains up 40%. Does he believe that people paying these exorbitant prices should be thankful for his economic lessons?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we promised to cut taxes for every Canadian. 22 million Canadians have their taxes cut. We promised to cut taxes on first-time home builders. They've been cut. We promised to cut the carbon tax. It's been cut. You weren't here. It's been cut. And we promised to build this country strong. November 4th, this House will have a choice. Are you with us for those single mothers? Are you with us for those farmers? Are you with us to build this country strong so they can get it?
Again, I would remind honourable members, it's through the chair. The honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I think he meant to say, are you with us for the bankers and bondholders who will be collecting record interest payments on the newly doubled national debt? The Prime Minister has literally doubled the deficits that he inherited from the Liberal government, deficits that were already exorbitant and out of control. And what do you know? Inflation immediately started to rise. 2 of the 4 measures are outside of the acceptable Bank of Canada range. All 4 measures are above the Bank of Canada's 2% target. The more he spends, the more things cost. Does he acknowledge at least that every dollar he spends comes out of the pockets of hardworking Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are putting more dollars in the pockets of hardworking Canadians because we cut taxes on 22 million Canadians. Mr. Speaker, our focus is putting even more dollars in the pockets of hardworking Canadians. That is why we will have the most ambitious capital investment program this country's ever seen, the most ambitious home building program this country has ever seen, the biggest investment in defense and our industrial capacity that this country has ever seen, and the biggest and most effective climate competitiveness strategy that this country has ever seen.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, Paccard and Sainte-Thérèse de Blainville, producing trucks, just had to let go of 300 employees due to the tariffs, the punishing tariffs from the Trump regime. 3 months after the elections that were supposed to solve all of these issues with respect to tariffs, can the Prime Minister reassure this company and the employees that no matter what, the employees and the company will be protected? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, we are disappointed by the situation at Paccard, at Stellantis and at GM in the automobile sector. We already have the best agreement with the U.S. We have the lowest tariffs for trucks and cars. But we are working with the Americans. We are negotiating with them. We will reassure workers at Paccard. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. If that's the best deal, Mr. Speaker, I would not want to see the worst. And this raises a lot of concerns. People need some degree of certainty. Can the Prime Minister assure us, beyond any reasonable doubt, especially after the loss of these 3% taxes on the web giants, that the cultural exception will be protected in the tariff negotiations and that supply management will be protected entirely, including processing and in all respects, with no compromise? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I can assure this House that we will protect supply management in our negotiations. We will protect Quebec and Canadian culture in the negotiations. That's it. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. That's it, but you have to say completely. First, we should discuss the issue of forestry. Now we have to be beyond the level of protecting it. We need to save it. The forestry industry is subjected to a crisis that is worse than in 2008. Shutdowns, closures, hundreds of jobs have just been lost in Saint-Michel-des-Saints. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that faced with these 45% tariffs, there will be a plan and a complete plan to save the forestry regions in Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there is a plan. There are initiatives. The Industry Minister just announced an initiative that will provide funding for the forestry sector in Quebec and throughout Canada. This is through the Canadian Development Bank. There's also the Strategic Renewal Fund within the forestry sector, and that is a complete plan.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has tried to deny the existence of continued hidden Liberal taxes on groceries. But Canada's leading food price expert, the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois, has said the exact opposite. He says, and I quote, "The industrial carbon tax, the worst part is still there." He was referring to the fact that farmers pay the tax on the steel that goes into their farm equipment, combines, tractors, and bins, and on their fertilizer. Is the Prime Minister really going to expect Canadians who can't pay their grocery bills to believe that the cost of the carbon tax on our farmers does not get passed on at the grocery shelf?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Stupid.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to quote independent research, Mr. Speaker, of the Canadian Climate Institute, which finds that the impact of the industrial carbon tax, now wait for it, the net impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices, it is on average around
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister expects us to believe government-funded so-called experts paid to push his agenda instead of believing in the obvious fact that when you tax the things that go into making food, you tax all who buy the food. This is a Prime Minister who says he's a great expert. But he told CTV Nova Scotia that Canadians don't use steel anymore. Does he not acknowledge, does he not know that there is steel in farm tractors, farm combines, farm bins, and other farm equipment? And does he not think, for God's sakes, that those costs get passed on to consumers?
It only took that many rounds, guys. This pansy, our prime minister, this fake and phony piece of whatever, he's putting in his House leader and Stephen McKinnon right now to answer. Watch. Like, Mark Carney is disgusting and repulsive. What a coward.
I was hoping to end as close to 3 as possible, but it might not be possible today. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The folks are feisty over there today. What I will say is we've been hearing all week, all month since the beginning of this session about these imaginary taxes. These imaginary taxes in the brain of the Leader of the Opposition, but that no one else has seemed to manage. What I will tell him is that there will be a budget, there will be some numbers and some tables that he can read there where he will not find taxes on food. There is no tax on food. There will never be a tax on food.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, first, we're all disappointed to learn that Liberals think that Canadians who see grocery prices rising at records rates are just imagining things, Mr. Speaker. And further disappointed to see that this Prime Minister cannot stand in his place and address real questions about the cost of groceries for Canadians. It's not just the industrial carbon tax, Mr. Speaker. It is also the government's fuel standard, which, according to their own department, is going to increase the cost of fuel by 17 cents on the farmers and the truckers who bring us our food. Does he really expect consumers to believe that won't?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
So I'm just going to point this out. Like right there, you can see that Carney stayed in the House. He's just not answering questions. It's Wednesday. You're supposed to answer a full question period of questions. Mark Carney is a pussy and a loser. And he's got me wound up today because that little asshole is still sitting in his seat, just not answering questions that are directed to him. And Canadians need to be aware that this is the coward that they've elected to the position of Prime Minister. Like, oh gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And what's not imaginary is that Canadians know who they can trust. In fact, time and again, they've looked at these Conservatives across the aisle vote against their very interests. Whether it's things like the school nutrition program, whether it's things like early learning and childcare, which, oh, by the way, Mr. Speaker, has got the average cost of childcare down to $16 a day. Mr. Speaker, these are real savings for real Canadian families, and the only thing imaginary is their own perception.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is really disappointed this Prime Minister refuses to stand up and debate the real cost of his taxes on Canadian food consumers. It's the same thing with the auto sector. He promised that he would negotiate a win. He promised to get a rapid deal. Still no win, still no deal. Elbows gone missing, and so are the jobs. Today we saw Paccard au Québec. Il y a 300.
In Quebec, 300 jobs lost at Paccard.
That it was Ingersoll, the Cami plant, and before that the GM plant in Oshawa. Is the Prime Minister selling out the auto sector in his attempt to back down to the U.S. President?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there's no I in team, but apparently there's an I in Conservative. Team in Conservative. There's a team on these benches. This government is in a position with the best accord with the Americans. We have the lowest tariff on the auto sector.
Straight up, Mark Carney's a puss. Like, what a wuss of a man. Now he's coming back into the lineup. Like, on Wednesdays, the Prime Minister is supposed to answer all the questions. But he doesn't do that. He breaks the mold.
Yeah, the Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, there's no I in team, but there is an I in Conservative. There is a team, and there is a team in Liberal that can answer these questions. And this is what the Liberal team has accomplished. We have the best deal with the Americans of any country. We have the lowest tariff on our automobiles and trucks of any country, but we are not satisfied. That is why we are negotiating a new accord on steel, on aluminum, on energy, and on auto.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question was about jobs, and he responds with a spelling bee, Mr. Speaker. This is the guy who's supposed to negotiate a win for us, a guy who said he'd have a deal by July 21st. He's the guy who said he's had his elbows up, and since that time, his elbows have gone missing, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian people need those jobs. He promised he would protect those jobs. Will he stand up today, look the auto workers in Ontario and Quebec in the eye, and tell them why he abandoned them and sold them out?
The Honourable Minister.
Do you think he's going to come back out? Oh, no, he's not. He's sending up Dominic LeBlanc.
Mr. Speaker, our
Drunk.
government has no difficulty looking at the hardworking women and men who work in our auto industry and in industries across the country to say that we're fighting for their jobs. We're standing up to the Americans for unjustified tariffs. We're negotiating what we think will be agreements that will be in the best interest of Canadian workers and the Canadian economy. And what we're also doing at the same time, Mr. Speaker, is taking steps to support those very industries in Canada. That's what we were elected to do. That's what the Prime Minister's doing with everybody on this side of the House.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That was not what this Prime Minister promised. He promised that he would negotiate a win. He promised that he would have a deal by July 21st. Neither of those things happened. He went to the auto sector and told the workers that not only would he protect their jobs, but there would be an all-in-Canada supply chain that is being dismantled right before our eyes. And it's not just his trade negotiating failures, it's his EV mandate, which has slammed the brakes on any investment in auto manufacturing in this country. If the Prime Minister take personal responsibility for this and announce today an end to the EV mandate so we can get our workers back to jobs.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
When it comes to the
Come
auto
on.
workers, they know that we have their back and that we will fight for every single job in this country in the auto sector. You know why? Because the Canadian automakers and the Canadian auto workers are actually the best in the world, and therefore we will make sure that Stellantis is held to account. We are meeting with GM tomorrow in Ottawa, bringing back a model into the plant in Ingersoll, and we will be there also for the employees at Paccard and Sainte-Thérèse. Thank you.
Okay, what about Gould? Okay, so
We have, I think.
okay. Excuse me. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member.
Wait. Okay, the Honourable.
Come on, guys.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's failures and capitulations are not just vis-a-vis the United States. He promised he would stand up for Western Canadian farmers, but canola tariffs have now more than doubled. The Prime Minister, in response to this, has given the communist regime in China the billion-dollar taxpayer-funded loans so that we can buy Chinese-made ships. And now he's announced that he's further conceded by removing tariffs on Chinese-made steel. Why is it that in addition to selling out the auto workers, he sold out our farmers and rewarded foreign dictatorships that target them with tariffs?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our new government was elected to expand and diversify over international trade with reliable partners. We are in a volatile global economy. We are defending our trade interests. We are expanding into new markets, and we are working alongside our farmers in every aspect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, service at the Canada Revenue Agency is worse than ever. Yesterday, the Auditor General confirmed that 8 years after our office issued a damning report on services at the agency, the situation has not improved. It has worsened. Only 5% of callers were able to speak to an agent within the 15-minute service standard. 5%. The Liberals can't say they were unaware because the Auditor General warned them of this as early as 2017, and they did nothing about it. After 8 years of inaction, when will the Liberals take responsibility? People are tired of waiting. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're taking action, Mr. Speaker. Already the Minister of Finance ordered the CRA, demanded that the CIA, the Canada Revenue Agency, look at the work that it is doing and be in a position to respond to the needs. These are very important measures. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, things are not improving at the Canada Revenue Agency. Yesterday, the Auditor General confirmed that they're not even answering the phone, but it gets worse. The Auditor General revealed that if you do manage to get through to the agency, the chances of getting the right answers to your questions are 17%. 17%, that means you have as much chance of getting a good answer from the CRA as you do of getting an answer in French from the Prime Minister. When is the Minister going to solve this fiasco? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we did not wait for the Auditor General's report to take action. We sent clear instructions to the CRA so that it would change its way of doing business to... What a show. Everyone's talking over... You feel as though you're in a daycare over here. So we are taking action, Mr. Speaker. We're going to improve services at the CRA. The Honourable Member from Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, rents have risen by almost 10%, twice the Canadian average, when we know that Canadians spend about 50% of their income to house themselves and feed themselves. This is concerning. In the meantime, the Liberal government is continuing to feed these inflationary costs for groceries, gas, housing. After 10 years of deficits and broken promises, families in Montmorency-Charlevoix and in Quebec can't take anymore. When will the Prime Minister take control of public finances and make life affordable for Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inform the House that inflation in Canada is under control, 2.4%, Mr. Speaker. The target range is between 1 and 3 at the Bank of Canada. We are at 2.4%, 21 months. It's been like that now. Second, Mr. Speaker, there is no relationship between the government deficits and inflation. Inflation is a global event, Mr. Speaker. COVID, war in Ukraine, increased costs of gas. Does that mean anything to you?
Encore une fois, on ne s'adresse pas directement au président.
We would ask you to speak through the Speaker. The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, in Montmorency-Charlevoix, children, seniors, and business owners just can't make ends meet. Economists are saying this is a recession. Cost of housing has increased, an increase of 10% in Quebec, whereas the Liberal costs are causing SMEs to be struggling. What they promised was to help the middle class, but they've actually done the very opposite. When will the deficit, not the cost of the deficit, no longer be borne by these families? When will they do something about these irresponsible expenditures? The Honourable Minister, in light of the exchanges in this question period, it is clear that economists are actually on this side of the House, not on that side. Now, when it comes time to talk about families in Montmorency-Charlevoix, what does he have to say to them when he voted against the child care benefit that helps thousands of them, when he voted against the dental care plan, or the Leader of the Opposition doesn't even think it exists? That's 6 million Canadians who have access to this. We have no lectures to hear from them when it comes time to help Canadian families. That's what we do on a daily basis.
The Honourable Member for Terranova, the Peninsulas.
Mr. Speaker, when this Liberal government creates deficits by spending more than what they receive in taxes, that creates inflation, costing Canadians more at the grocery store, more at the gas station, and more everywhere else. New inflation data confirms Canadians are being crushed by these Liberal deficits. All three core inflation measures are alarming. In just the last year, grocery inflation is up 4% and rent inflation is up by nearly 5%. When will these Liberals get the inflationary deficits under control to make life more affordable for Canadians instead of trying to outspend Justin Trudeau?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on making the investments that are going to help Canadians get ahead, whether it's investing in major projects, whether it's investing in affordable housing, whether it's investing in early learning and childcare so people can make the best wages possible. Our government is focused on one thing, and that's Canadian success. Canadians know that too, Mr. Speaker. They don't trust those guys to protect their interests. They don't trust those guys for the long-term thinking that results in better outcomes for their families and their children. That's why we're on this side of the House.
The Honourable Member for Mission Matsqui Abbotsford.
Speaker, I represent one of the most trade-exposed regions in Canada, and Canadian manufacturers are being crushed by the industrial carbon tax and rising inflation. From steel, aerospace, and auto parts to food processing, every step in the supply chain is costing more. Manufacturers can't compete when the cost of everything keeps rising and businesses are burdened with more and more red tape. Will the Prime Minister finally admit that his industrial carbon tax policy and red tape policies like the plastic registry are unnecessary burdens doing nothing to improve competitiveness or to protect the environment?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Of course, we'll be there to protect jobs, to create jobs and attract talent and investment. Right. And when it comes to creating jobs, particularly in the manufacturing sector, we're doing this through our new defense industrial strategy, which will be about buy, build, and partner. And of course, we'll do that through major projects. Across the country, we've already announced 5 major projects worth $60 billion in private capital. We're coming up with the next step with new projects before Grey Cup. By the way, Grey Cup, November 16, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mission Matsqui.
Mr. Speaker, if the Industry Minister had to be burdened with the paperwork and the bills that small businesses are facing today, she would act differently in this House. Hear, hear. Take the food and beverage industry, for example. They run on razor-thin margins, and after 10 years of Liberal deficits, food inflation continues to rise, 4% this year. That's forcing restaurants to charge more and make less. Is this government willing to address any of the costs that small businesses are facing, or will it keep borrowing, spending, and driving inflation even higher while job creators are left paying the price? Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Women, Gender Equality, Tourism and Small Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government understands the importance of Canadian industries, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, we introduced the Buy Canadian policy to strengthen supply chains and support small businesses with the opportunities to succeed right here in Canada. We're also supporting small businesses hard hit by the tariffs, expanding the Business Development Bank of Canada loans by up to $5 million, and launched the $5 billion Strategic Response Fund so that businesses can adopt and pivot during these challenging times. And Mr. Speaker, we're also reducing red tape, unlike what the member just said just now. Mr. Speaker, these measures are going to support Canadian industries, support Canadian workers, and support our small businesses. And Mr. Speaker, happy Small Business Week.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Independence is fundamental to the operations of the RCMP. My former MP and the current leader of the Conservative Party recklessly criticized the RCMP. His caucus doesn't want to talk about it, and even a former Conservative minister stated how grossly imprecise his comments were. Can the Minister of Public Safety reiterate the importance of the RCMP's independence, which ensures the protection of all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
I want to thank the member for Carleton for this very important question, Mr. Speaker. The leader of the opposition has made some irresponsible statements relating to the RCMP. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, the RCMP play an integral role in the safety and security of Canadians. It's an independent organization that abides by the rule of law. For the leader of the opposition to impinge the integrity of the RCMP is beyond the seat that he holds, Mr. Speaker, and I demand that he unequivocally retract those statements and seek an apology from the RCMP, the men and women that serve this country, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Middlesex, London.
Speaker, Cami families are getting pink slips and the auto sector in Canada is hanging by a thread. The Liberal EV mandate is a bumper sticker, not a plan. A pipe dream that costs billions in taxpayer subsidies and all for nothing. Over 6,000 Canadian families' livelihoods are at stake right now as auto manufacturers move their businesses to the U.S. So will the Prime Minister tell unemployed auto workers why his failed policies that help send their jobs south?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Let me be clear, what is happening to the auto sector is actually linked to the American tariffs. When it comes to the EV mandates, the Minister of Environment, myself, of course, with the Prime Minister, we've been working with the industries to find solutions. And by the way, right now, they've been paused. So when it comes to the workers themselves, we will be there to support them. We will make sure that Stellantis is held to account. And meanwhile, we're working with GM to bring at the Ingersoll plant a new model, because obviously these workers need to be supported, and we will build one Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, that's just more talk from the Liberals that does nothing to help people. Cami workers in Ingersoll are worried about paying their mortgages and putting food on the tables. Right. After handing out billions in subsidies, Cami's indefinite layoffs, they come at the cost of the Liberals' failure to negotiate protections for workers. When Cami bleeds, so do part suppliers, tool and die makers, truckers, diners, and other small businesses across Middlesex, London, and southwestern Ontario. So will the Prime Minister look the auto workers in the eye and explain to them why he failed to protect their jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
My minister is working with Doug Ford. I'm working with Vic Vitelli, and we're also working with Unifor to bring back a new model at Ingersoll. And we will make sure to put pressure on GM as they need to honor their contracts. And meanwhile, we will make sure that indeed the workers that we look in the eyes have confidence that we're fighting for their jobs.
The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, Stellantis got $15 billion of taxpayer money. That's over $1,000 from every Canadian household. And what's the result? 3,000 Canadian workers are losing their job as production moves to the U.S. If that's the Liberal job protection, Canadians should be alarmed. Will the Prime Minister tell us exactly how many Canadian jobs are guaranteed in that $15 billion deal? Or did the Liberals just write a blank check to protect corporate profits, not Canadian workers?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Speaker, I understand the frustration on the part of my colleague who's from the region. That being said, I think we have to set facts extremely straight.
That's right.
Because obviously the support to the sector was linked to the fact that there would be production of batteries. As the production has only started, obviously $15 billion of federal taxpayers' money have not been invested. What is at stake, though, is that we negotiated very well the contracts to support the Brampton plant, and therefore the opposition, including the Conservatives, will have access to these contracts in committee, and they will see that we have the workers back.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister handed $10 billion to Stellantis to create 2,500 jobs in Windsor, but now they're threatening to ship 3,000 jobs from Brampton to the U.S. These Liberals have abandoned Canadian auto workers who don't know how they'll provide for their families and their futures. What job guarantees do the Liberals actually negotiate? And if there's nothing to hide, why won't they release the contracts outlining the specific details of the Canada-wide job guarantees?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Knows very well that we're working to support auto workers and the sector in Canada. There's over 100 years, Mr. Speaker, of proud history in making vehicles in Canada. That's a manufacturing sector that's important to every part of the country. That's why not only are we taking measures with the Government of Ontario and partners across the country, unions, to support the industry and those workers, we're also negotiating with the Americans so that we can get a deal that's in the interest of the long-term security of Canada's auto sector.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent Akiawanrock. Mr. Speaker, for 60 years, PACCAR has been manufacturing cars in St. Therese de Blainville. Today, 300 workers learned that they would be losing their job. That is the sad reality of Liberal policies. They talk a lot, but they act little. These people were elected under a slogan of elbows up and a promise that all tariffs would be lifted. But what happened? 300 people lost their job. What will the Prime Minister actually do to convince Trump that these tariffs make no sense? And what will he say to these workers? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a lot of respect for my colleague, and I know the PACCAR plant very well. I actually visited it with the new member for Therese de Blainville recently. I spoke with the head of the plant lately. Bad news has gone out. We will not accept this. We will continue to fight to ensure that our workers in St. Therese are not only supported, because St. Therese is a Quebec manufacturing hub, but we will also work with the province of Quebec and municipalities throughout the country. We should be buying more trucks made here in Canada. The same can be said for buses. We will protect our jobs.
Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Yesterday, the Auditor General delivered a scathing report on the state of childcare. Despite spending billions of dollars from this Liberal government, the childcare plan, their shortages of available childcare has gotten worse over the last 5 years. StatsCan showed the proportion of parents that use childcare and reported difficulty finding it rose from 36% in 2020 to nearly 50% in 2025. Wow. Only Liberals could spend more and get less. Will the Prime Minister admit that his childcare plan is yet another broken Liberal promise?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, it's the sort of height of irony that a Conservative MP who voted against childcare is now criticizing childcare that exists across this country. What the Auditor General said is that provinces and territories have to do a better job in terms of reporting. We're working with provinces and territories to make sure that we grow the number of spaces. But let me leave you with this, Mr. Speaker. $16.50 a day. That's the average price families are paying for childcare, and that's a huge savings for Canadian families.
Yeah, right.
The honourable member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Typical Liberals blame everyone but themselves. They committed to build 250,000 new childcare spaces in 5 years. 3 years in, less than half. Worse yet, they don't know how many spaces are going unused. They don't know how much unmet demand exists, all while using funky, inconsistent math. Provinces are warning that this $10 system could collapse when federal funding ends, with inflation and staffing shortages piling up. How can the Prime Minister justify blowing through billions with families waiting on waiting lists?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, again, I'm really heartened to hear about the support that that member has for early learning and childcare. It's a real switch, Mr. Speaker, given that you voted against it time and again. But I will say this, Mr. Speaker, I have a meeting with my counterpart this afternoon with the Minister from Alberta to talk about exactly that, how we take the next steps together, because as that member would know, jurisdiction over childcare lives in provinces and territories. We have funded this system to such an extent that, Mr. Speaker, the average family is paying $16.50 a day. What a savings for Canadian families.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General concluded the Canadian Armed Forces did not recruit and train the members it needs to meet operational requirements. She further said that our forces will struggle to respond to threats, emergencies, and conflicts and accomplish their missions. The report also revealed that on this trajectory, 13% of occupations are at risk of never being fully slated, and another 69% won't get there for over 10 years. Our adversaries aren't waiting for Canada to get our house in order. How does the Defence Minister expect our armed forces to meet our international obligations and protect Canada without the personnel?
The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we thank the Auditor General for her work. As we rebuild, rearm and reinvest in Canada's military, we're making changes to our recruitment processes to get more people in the door and faster. We've modernized our recruitment process by introducing a probationary period, streamlining the security clearance process, updating the aptitude test requirements, changing medical standards. We've also given our forces a very well-deserved pay increase. Mr. Speaker, recruitment has reached a 10-year high, but there's more to do.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
But he let 100,000 Canadians slip through his fingers. The Auditor General also reported yesterday the situation gets worse for our troops after they enlist. She said military housing is, and I quote, the kind of conditions you and I wouldn't want to live in, nor should we expect our troops to either. The National Defence Committee came to the same conclusions in the last Parliament. Nothing has changed, and the report confirmed the wait list for military housing is growing to over 70,000. How can the Defence Minister sleep at night knowing our troops are living rough, and all he can do is re-announce old Liberal promises for 600 new housing units, but our troops need 7,000 now?
The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I sleep very well at night because of the incredible women and men in the Canadian Armed Forces. That's who I count on. That's who I count on. We're rearming, Mr. Speaker. We're rebuilding and we're reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. The member knows this. When it comes to CAF housing, we're looking at new solutions through private sector partnerships to give our forces a safe and affordable place to call home. Last week, for the first time in history, we acquired a brand new, privately developed 37-unit apartment complex located near CFP Esquimalt in 5 weeks, Mr. Speaker. This is just one of the ways we are accelerating processes to get our CAF members in housing.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week is the National Week to recognize early childhood educators in official language minority communities. These are professionals who help our little ones learn and grow. Early childhood is crucial to learn the French language and build a French-speaking identity. Could the minister talk about what our government is doing to support ECEs and boost this workforce so essential that drives our affordable childcare system nationwide? The Honourable Minister of Employment and Families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague from Madawaska-Restigouche for highlighting the exceptional work of early childhood educators throughout the country. Our government has invested over $1 billion to hire, train, and retain more ECEs. We are working with provinces and territories to improve their wages and their training, because when we support early childhood educators, we also support families and the future of our economy. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, it's embarrassing. The Prime Minister talks about economic lessons when his public services and procurement minister could give lessons in corruption. After 10 years of Liberal government waste has gone up by 66%. The responses we are here getting today show that they understood nothing about balanced budgets. When will we get over to a period of proper economic management? The Honourable Minister responsible for national revenue. You know what's embarrassing? The official opposition leader who talks about jailing his political adversaries. The official opposition leader who is undermining the rule of law in the country. The official opposition leader denigrating the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And you know what else is embarrassing? The opposition leader is not only not apologizing, 100 of his members of parliament are refusing to denounce these completely inappropriate remarks. His predecessor in Richmond-Arthabaska would have some lessons to teach him. He should follow his example and call out his leader.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket, Aurora.
A business that fails to meet its service standards 95% of the time would go bankrupt. But under this Liberal government, that's the standard at the CRA. And what's their answer? Throw more money at the problem. Costs are up 70%, but still 8.6 million calls are being deflected, and 83% of the answers to individual tax questions are wrong. Even the CRA chatbot got questions wrong 2/3 of the time. It's hopeless. If this Liberal government can't even manage its own revenue agency, how can Canadians trust it to ever balance the budget?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve timely, reliable, and accurate service from the CRA. And that's why we thank the Auditor General for her report. Earlier this fall, we embarked upon a 100-day plan to strengthen service, improve access, and eliminate unacceptable delays. And we have good news. Since the launch of the plan, CRA call center service levels have more than doubled. 89% of Canadians getting an answer within 15 minutes. Wow. That is good news. This report will help the CRA build on significant service improvements it has made since September. It will also help guide our government to work as
the Honourable Member for Swift Current Grasslands Kindersley.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General report shows CRA had a huge increase in deflected calls from 1 million to 8 million in 1 year. Wow. People in the Southwest wait hours, sometimes days, to reach a service agent. Then they have to deal with huge delays in resolving their file, even if the CRA made the mistake. CRA fails to meet its own service standards after already lowering them, and the odds are high that the agents will give you inaccurate information. But their budget went up 70%. So why is that with these Liberals? Canadians always pay more but get less.
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. The CRA is providing accurate information to Canadians in nearly all cases. The audit looked at a sample of 167 calls from last spring before we launched our 100-day plan to fix survey service. The CRA reviews over 100,000 calls every year for accuracy and has found that more than 93% are accurate for inquiries related to taxpayer files. We are focused on delivering service for Canadians. We will get this right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Well, Mr. Speaker, cap paper is an integral part of Northern Ontario's economic security, supporting over 2,500 skilled local careers in the region. But a few weeks ago, the community was rocked by the news that cap paper would be shuttering its doors, devastating for the community and for workers and families throughout Northern Ontario. Can the Minister of Industry please tell this House how we are supporting cap paper and other industries and how our government is standing up for skilled careers and stronger communities?
Honourable Minister of Industry.
Merci. I would like to thank my honourable colleague for his hard work, and I would like also to thank the Minister for Jobs and also the Minister for Natural Resources, because we work together to lay down the groundwork for cap paper to continue its operations in months ahead. Through the conversation we had with cap paper, one thing became clear: they're the heartbeat of Kapuskasing and a vital part of the community. So that is why we came to the table with solutions. We were able to protect the jobs, 300 of them, and all the jobs around Kapuskasing linked to the mill, 2,500 jobs as well.
Excellent. The honourable member for Kenora Kiwetinong.
After years of talk, this Prime Minister is breaking his promise to get shovels in the ground when it comes to the constantly delayed Ring of Fire in Northern Ontario, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of jobs and billions of dollars are on the line, and yet the Liberals refuse to move this project ahead. The roadway won't even be built until 2028, and the Liberals ignored this project completely on their national priority list, a huge slap in the face to people across Northern Ontario. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals stop with the delays, stop breaking their promise, and get shovels in the ground so that our region can get to work?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Thunder Bay, Superior North, and the Minister of Jobs and Families. I agree with the member that the Ring of Fire is an extremely important deposit in Northern Ontario. We've been working with the province of Ontario for years to ensure that we have a plan to move forward, and we've been working with the affected First Nations in that riding, which is mine, and we'll continue to focus on the opportunity that the Ring of Fire presents for not just Northern Ontario, but all of Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite-Patrie. At Trudeau Airport, the New Rest Corporation had a meal contract with Air Canada. They knew that they would lose their contract, but they still brought over temporary foreign workers with closed work permits, 3-year work permits. A closed work permit is a terrible thing. It prevents people from changing employers. So now 50 people have gotten the rug completely pulled out from under them. They have no job, and they aren't allowed to find a new one. Will the immigration minister listen to Labour leaders and provide a new open work permit so these people can find new jobs? The Honourable Minister of Immigration and Citizenship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to address this situation. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program seeks to let Canadian employers hire foreign workers when there are no Canadians or permanent residents who are qualified to do the job. We will continuing to bring down the number of temporary foreign workers, and we will work with the member opposite. We are here to protect Canadians, but we are also here to protect employers and businesses who require foreign workers. Thank you. This concludes question period for today.
All right, gang, we're going to wrap it up right there. Aaron, Canadian Looney. Sorry, I was distracted there. I got a knock on the door from the RCMP. We did have an altercation here. Not an altercation, but there's a long story behind that one. Anyways, it was a pretty friendly visit. They were just dropping off documents, but nobody likes looking out the window and seeing that it's the cops coming to knock on your door. The kid's only 23, and he's sweet. He's a nice guy. I live very rural here in Nova Scotia, but anyhow, what a wild day. I can't believe the cowardice of Mark Carney. He's supposed to, on Wednesdays, go the full question period. He hasn't done it once yet, and he's such a coward, man. How long is it going to take? Because I know I'm preaching to the choir here with a bunch of people that are in the loop. They know how bad it is with this government, that we need change like last election, or even before that. We can go back to 2019, 2021. But because still, again, don't be oblivious to this, guys. Our enemy is powerful. Just because we don't like it doesn't mean that it's not a force to be reckoned with. Because Mark Carney and his merry band of misfits are in control, and they still have 45% of Canadian support. Yeah, it's a strange thing. So never underestimate the enemy, guys. That's chapter 13, The Art of War. Don't underestimate the enemy, because they're stronger than you think and they're richer than you think, because the corporations back them. That's what this is all about. Everything that's going down now is a transfer of government power to corporate power, and they're trying to pretend or dupe you into just believing that they're incompetent, or they're stupid, or they're even villainous, or it's malice. It's not that. Well, it's malice and it's incompetence and all of those things, but it's to transfer the power of control from governments to corporations. That, no matter which way you skin that rabbit, that is what is going on. And they hide behind the guise of the deception they use is that we're incompetent. They'd put a dumb bitch like Lena Diab in there as immigration minister when we have an immigration crisis on our hands. And yes, she's a stupid bag of wind that has no use for any Canadian, and she's incompetent. But for her bosses, she plays the role perfectly. Again, this isn't a conspiracy in my mind. I watch hours, hundreds of hours of this a week. And, well, probably every week. And it's happened in Australia. It's happened in France, Britain. Britain is pretty much dead. Germany is dead. And it's all in this green initiative scam. And whether that's run by the PRC or the WEF or whoever in the fuck you want to say it belongs to, it's corporations that generate it all. And corporations, even this platform is a corporation. They're not going to like me pointing out the fact that, I'm not going to say their name or anything, but that this corporation is promoting you eating bugs and being happy about it, because that is the bottom line. Klaus Schwab, Santa Claus Schwab, and his mess of a organization. But the thing is, they've got over $1,000 billion companies that are registered with WEF. Do you think that they give a shit about your health or your kid's future or their education or your retirement or your pension? Nope, they do not. Anyhow, we're going to wrap it up right here, guys. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, thank you all for tuning in. What a wild and wacky question period that was. We are going to wrap up right here. Thank you all again so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. I hope you like the pre-show, because I enjoy showing it, and I don't mind collecting the clips to make it. I watch this stuff anyways. Might as well cut the clips, right? That's it. Kirk, my man, thank you so much. Everybody, you're the best. we're out for now, and we'll look into our magic mirror and see what we can see. Let's go.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.
Ding dong.
Questions orales, oral questions.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about